remarks for today's webinar on the rooftop solar, sir.
Well, thank you for that. In fact, we are having a series of seminars. The other day, we had a meeting with the American Embassy, and I'm told the American ambassador told that ISA is more active during COVID than when COVID was not there. That's a good mark, and that all reflects on the colleagues, who have
not in the same sense,
Yeah, because they're doing much more work than perhaps what we're doing earlier, but there is no wish the COVID to continue. It should quickly end, and normal things should be resumed. But 2-3 things are important. One is, we have really taken up the virtual training part. We plan to train 5,000 people per program, and we have 7 programs. So essentially means 35,000 people can be trained over 3 years or 4 to 5 years. Even we find that virtual mode trainings are quite useful. For example, banking solar program, where we had 3 English medium trainings, 1 French medium, and 1 Spanish medium. Some 250 people have been trained. It's for, I think, 3.5 hours a day over 5 days, around 18 hours. But the feedback that we get is that it is very useful. And now we're talking about, with the help of ICAR and ICRISAT, if we can train farmers, bankers further in solar pump program. And there are so many stakeholders, and when we are talking about the training of the farmer, we are talking not only about water management, we are talking about management of additional income that they get. We are talking about soil management, we are talking about crop management. So these are the new ideas that are coming up. And this we take to rooftop, we take it to mini grids, because we take it to solar mobility and storage, solar cooling and heating, which are actually really heating up with a number of new programs and projects. And we are also happy to form this project unit under Mr. Mahapatra, who is from IIT Kharagpur and was Additional Chief Secretary in Haryana, and he had a stint in Commerce Ministry as well. So with him, we have put a number of technical people, and we have formed this project group to have specific look at projects, because we launch a program and we don't have too many people. So, and we have also requested member countries to send 47 projects, innovative projects we can take up. And ground mounted or rooftop is one of those ideas, innovative ideas that can come. And when we talk about innovative projects, we not only talk in terms of technological innovation, we are also talking in terms of managerial innovation. How do you maintain, what are the new ideas? You can make it a business proposal. How do you actually look after for next 5 years? And then all the other programs, including solar mobility, storage. Now we have fixed a target of 8 business models under each project, each program. So first we talked about business models for solar pumps. In fact, we made a presentation before the president. We took some models from Gujarat, some models we got it from Bangladesh. So a sort of aggregation of business projects, because every country and every banker talks about business models, and that is the key sense of a project. How to make a project bankable. And until the World Solar Bank comes, which perhaps will be a little less strict about commercial banking, because it will talk about the gender issue of 2 billion women without access to clean energy. It will talk about 780 million people who have no access to electricity itself. And in that direction, of the training of 35,000 people in virtual or non-virtual mode, the stakeholders, because that is the real capacity building in our member countries. And second thing is business models. So, and these 2 drives that now we've newly identified, it actually contributes to the 2 I's of ISA we talk about, the $1,000 billion of investment and the reduction in cost of technology and finance. So these are all interrelated. And in this direction, I'm very happy that, my colleagues have taken up a series of this type of workshops, or we call virtual workshops or webinars. In fact, in ISA, we started something called Solinar. My colleague, Fiona, she looks after Solinars. They also have a niche area to talk about, we actually combine solar plus webinar. So instead of calling it webinar, we call it Solinar. And these things are going to be very helpful. And our member countries actually have, they request for this type of new business models to come in. And when we talk about business models, we actually talk about three things together. It is a simple example when some 50 ambassadors and high commissioners visited a village some 200 kilometers away from Lucknow, a mini grid, where a solar mini grid was working for 3 years. We found there was Japanese money, there was Indian skills. The company was, I think, Ocean, they were maintaining, and money had come from Japan, and most of the technology was from France, side of the equipment. So you find in a small village, when you're talking about a mini grid project or a rooftop project, and in rooftop, if you go to nice campus, you find so many new things, plug and play model, you go and put it up and immediately connect, and you can get 2 kilowatt hour of energy. And if you have enough space, you put 4 or 5 of them together, you get 10 kilowatt. And we are talking about, smart rooftop solar kits. That is what Tesla is now doing. Essentially, what Tesla says, it should be like any bookshelf that you buy. You get a packet of, pressed wood, you fix the nuts and bolts, and the shelf is ready for keeping books. So you don't have to depend on an engineer and a technician to be called. You have a toolkit book, you have a manual to read, and you can fix on your own. And so that type of more and more rooftop systems we need, which are completely packed in knockdown condition. You just open it and fit it. And to that direction, the GIZ's model, the 2 kilowatt model, which we have displayed in NICE, is good. So it is not merely business ideas that these workshops will bring up, but we will also talk about new type of innovative equipment that you can display. In NICE also, you have another model. I think there's a company called Raven, they put it. It's like a mobile tower. And on the mobile tower, you have 5, 6 panels, and now you have got something called Tiger panels, which is almost close to 0.5 megawatt. And 5 such panels without interfering with each other. I mean, the shadow of one should not cover the other. You can have one mobile tower on the rooftop, which is 5 into Tiger panels, 2.5 megawatt we are talking about. And of course, before cyclones come, you must unpack it and keep it if it's cyclone prone area. And that is what they did in Odisha last cyclone time. So with this, I won't take more time, and I'm again very happy about the webinars moving. And we are also very thankful to all of your excellencies for having time to join us and encourage us. And I'm sure we will get very productive output out of these webinars. So once again, I welcome everyone, and back to you.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Director General ISA, dignitaries from member countries, honorable speakers, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Good morning to friends from Africa, Europe, and Latin Americas. Good evening to friends from Far East, Australia, and Pacific region. It's my privilege to welcome you all to today's webinar on the rooftop solar being organized by the project group of the ISA. This webinar is the 4th of the series of webinars being organized in relation to the ISS initiative on demonstration project in the 47 LDC and SIDS member countries of the ISA. The first 3 have been on solar desalination plant for drinking water purposes, solar-powered efficient cold chain for increasing the post-harvest shelf life of fruits, vegetables, and meat products, etc. And the third one was on ground-mounted solar projects. These webinars constitute a part of ISS larger efforts towards knowledge dissemination and capacity building. The Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in September 2015 emphasizes on the shared vision of the humanity for a holistic approach to achieve sustainable development for all, including a promise of a better world for the next generations. We have 17 development goals, and the clean and affordable carbon neutral 24/7 electricity for all is the key input for achieving most of these sustainable goals. Accordingly, according to a joint report developed by the 5 custodian agencies, namely IEA, IRENA, UNSD, the World Bank, and the WHO, despite substantial progress in recent years, the world is falling short of achieving the global energy goals set up by the UN SDG for 2030. The latest World Energy Outlook 2020 by the International Energy Agency IEA forecasts that the solar energy is set to become the new king in the electricity. Renewable energy sector will grow in the post-COVID scenario with solar energy at the center of the new constellation. Coal demand in the post-COVID scenario does not return back to the pre-crisis level. In 2040, its share in the energy mix will fall to below 20% for the first time since the Industrial Revolution. Excellencies, ensuring affordable, secure, safe, and modern energy for all by 2030 remains feasible, but will take more sustained efforts, in particular to meet some of the poorest communities in the world and boost the energy sustainability. To address this concern, the majority of the governments and utilities are pushing for the development of solar energy to achieve clean energy targets powered by numerous low tariff records all around the globe. Whether it is India with US cent 3.4 per unit cost of solar energy or Portugal with US cent 1.65 per unit cost. However, much progress has been made to date on large-scale solar utility projects. While these projects will play an important role in development of significant generation capacity in the coming years, if the government and utility are to meet their ambitious long-term clean energy target, they will need to ensure robust regulatory frameworks and policies for rooftop development and distributed solar capacity. According to the Grand View Research latest market analysis report 2020, the global rooftop solar PV market size was valued at $66.84 billion in 2019 and is projected to progress at a compound annual growth rate CAGR of 6.1% from 2020 to 2027. The introduction of solar PV systems not only help minimize the huge cost of grid expansion in rural areas with low power demand, but also lowers the electricity distribution losses of existing grid in urban and semi-urban areas. In this context, the organization of the present webinar is of significance. Many LDCs and SIDS countries have recognized the advantage of the opportunity of the solar PV to achieve their development goals. They are encouraging policies for grid-connected solar projects as well as off-grid solar solutions to secure energy access and economy. The ISA has been working closely with the member countries to enable solar deployment by providing support in areas of demand aggregation, capacity building, access to affordable financing, knowledge dissemination, and technical assistance. As a part of its continuous effort to assist member countries, ISA now plans to support up to $50,000 to each of its 47 LDC and SIDS member countries to set up certain innovative solar projects of particular relevance to their countries. Today's webinar on the rooftop solar is intended to provide a platform for discussing varieties of aspects related to the technology options, business modalities. The object of the webinar is to initiate a meaningful dialogue between various stakeholders, including technology suppliers and member countries, to develop an actionable roadmap for the implementation of such projects. The webinar will also discover the technical aspect regarding the landscape and on-ground challenges for such projects. We have 6 eminent speakers today, representing 6 prime organizations today. Mr. Manu Srivastava, former Principal Secretary, New and Renewable Energy, Government of Madhya Pradesh, India, will be the first speaker. He will speak on his experience on demand aggregation and the implementation of solar rooftops in the government buildings. Mr. Sudarshan Kumar Saini, Expert Global Advisory Committee and former Senior Vice President, Tata Power, DDL, Delhi, India, will speak on the importance and possibilities of rooftop solar in residential, institutional, and commercial buildings. Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal, MD, Amplus Solar, India, will share his experiences on various factors enhancing the viability of rooftop solar products and case studies. Mr. Abhishek Shah from KPMG will present various successfully implemented business models in rooftop solar. Mr. GJL Sulakshana Jayavardhane, Director Development, Ministry of Power, Energy and Business Development, and the National Focal Point of Sri Lanka, will be the next speaker and will share his country's experience in scaling up the rooftop solar. Mr. J. Gebler, Principal Advisor GIZ Germany, will speak on solar promotion possibility and potential in ISA member countries, plug-and-play portable solar rooftop model, and path for the solar promotion in the ISA member countries. We have confirmation of 18 countries so far who will be making the country interventions. We have scheduled half an hour for them. The countries for whom we have got a confirmed registration and participations are Benin, Ethiopia, Guyana, India, Kiribati, Malawi, Mali, Maldives, Namibia, Papua New Guinea, Sri Lanka, Somalia, Sudan, Tanzania, Togo, Tonga, and Zimbabwe. We welcome the other countries who might have joined in the meantime in the webinar to participate in the country intervention part. There are many other participants who are attending the webinar from other parts of the globe. There is simultaneous translation facility in English and French going on, and this webinar is also available live on YouTube channels. This webinar will help all of us to set up the foundational base to understand solar photovoltaic rooftop models in greater details and to eventually chart out a roadmap for supporting our member countries in their deployment. With this, I would now like to invite the distinguished speakers for their presentations. Thank you, everyone. Mr. P.C. Sharma, will you please take over and conduct the meeting?
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Mr. Manu Srivastava, former Principal Secretary, New and Renewable Energy, Government of Madhya Pradesh, India. He is the person behind getting lowest tariffs of PPA of REVA solar power projects and rooftop solar projects in Madhya Pradesh. So I request him to kindly make his presentation. Over to Mr. Srivastava.
Thanks, His Excellency, the Director General, the advisors, and all the national focal points from the various member countries of ISA. I would be talking about rooftop. Primarily, the experience that I have had is that though all of us understand that solar has become much cheaper, but most organizations, most countries are not in a position to invest the capital resources that are necessary to set up a solar project. So we tried it in our state and we faced the same difficulty. And then the model that we evolved was that rather than expecting an organization to invest any money in setting up a solar project, the model that we have was that there would be a private company which invests and sells power to the organization over a period of 25 years and recovers its investment through sale of power. So this is broadly called the RESCO, or Renewable Energy Service Company model. So I think you can see the presentation that I have. So that is how it begins. It says making the sun smile with zero investment, because the beneficiary organization is not making any investment at all. So the idea is to make the sun smile, to get its solar energy, to get advantage of its cheap rates, but without any investment. I hope the presentation is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So this is RESCO. RESCO essentially is Renewable Energy Service Company. The model is a private company invests. No investment is to be made by the individual beneficiary, the organization. If you set it up over a secretariat or over a university, college, medical college, anything, they don't invest any money at all. all the money is invested by a private company. The private company sells power to that building for 25 years, recovers its investment that way. We do it through a bidding, and the bidding parameter is the rate of power. So the bidder who offers to set up the project with the least rate, we award the project to that private company, and that private company then sets up the solar project on top of our building. So we did this project in our state, and I would just share with you the low rates that we've got. This is in US cents, so all of us would have some idea. So in various categories of buildings, what you see in the darker brown color is the rates of what discoms were charging. So you would see it various rates for various categories of buildings, but around 8 to 10 US cents per unit was being charged by the discoms. And under our project, we got a rate that is shown that you see in the orange or light color. So the rates are between 2 to 3 US cents, but the lowest rate that we got was less than 2 US cents per unit. And the round circles that you see at the top are the savings that each category of organization makes annually in $1,000 US. So we did it for various categories of projects in the state. For example, the first one is higher education colleges. So we did not do it only in the state capital or the bigger cities. There were 291 colleges spread all over the state. So you can imagine a college is a very small building, and it was a small solar energy project was required to be set up there. And 291 of them all over the state. Similarly, for 156 police buildings, police stations, etc. Then 124 engineering colleges, etc. Some medical colleges, and so on. So for each category of building, we did a separate tender, and we got a rate which is around 2 to 3 cents, and the lowest rate was 1.8 US cents per unit. This project was with a certain amount of subsidy. But over a period of time, we realized that there is no requirement of subsidy. So I have also done a small calculation to show that what would have been the rate had there been no subsidy at all. Because this project had subsidy both from Government of India and the state government. So it had 45% subsidy. So there is a small calculation which I can share with you. But if we do this calculation, then it comes out that the rate without any subsidy would be 3.19 US cents per unit. Even that is a very low rate. This rate, the structure that we had, which I will talk about later, the rate escalates at the rate of 3% per year. I would discuss with you why I think that makes sense. But the first year rate is around 3 US cents per unit. So you would compare to the discom rates, utility rates in each of your countries, and you would see that the rates that discoms are charging for energy is much higher than that. And here you have a solar project being set up with zero investment, and you get solar power at rates much lower than that of the utility. So really, it's a no-brainer. So when you go and convince any organization, it's a medical college or a police station or a university, anyone, then it's very easy to convince them, because you are not asking them for any investment at all, and you are giving them a rate which is much lower than the utility rate. And it is not just that the projects were bid out, they were actually sanctioned. This is the PPA signing of that project, which is the lowest rate in India, of in rupees 1 rupee 38 paisa, but in US cents less than 2 cents. So the DG of ISA was kind enough to come for the program. And this happened in June of 2019. And the project is complete, running. This is a photograph of the project that you see. The project is running. And this organization is actually getting power at under 2 US cents per unit. So this is not just a bid that was successfully completed and there were press notes and you know, people applauding. The project has already been completed. So you see the project right in front of you. As I said, the PPA was signed in June of last year, and the project has been running for quite a few months. The photographs are there in front of you. So the issue is that how do we do such a project? So I would have some points and share with you. Of course, we can discuss in greater detail, but I would just bring out the basic points. So firstly, you have to see the policy and the regulations in your country. to see how it fits into this project. We had some, I think most countries would be able to adapt to the system that we had, because what you are doing is essentially behind the meter. So you do not need a very formal approval from the DISCOM, because what you're having is a system behind the meter, behind the net meter. So essentially the relationship that you have is between the beneficiary and the private party, the RESCO developer and the building owner. So most countries should allow this. Then the important point is market creation, because if you go to the market saying that I want to set up a solar project in one college, then no one would be interested. So what we did was, well, we aggregated the demand of all the colleges in the state. Similarly, we aggregated demand of all the police stations in the state. So this is what you see in this screen is how we aggregated the demand. For example, we aggregated the demand of 291 colleges. So 291 colleges, the total demand becomes more than 5 megawatt. So no one might be interested in a single project because the average size of project is around 20 kilowatt. But if you put 291 projects together, then the demand becomes 5 megawatt. The next you see government medical colleges. You aggregate them, the demand becomes 3.5 megawatt. So each one of them, I mean, you see any one of them, for example, on F, I have mentioned police establishments, 156 police establishments. So the average size in a police establishment is very small, around 22 kilowatt. No one would be interested to set up a 22 kilowatt project. But if you aggregate 156 buildings, then you get a massive project of around 3.5 megawatt, which is investment of almost $4 to $5 million. So when it is an investment of $4 to $5 million, then you have a lot of big companies wanting to invest, wanting to invest in the project, and then you have sufficient participation. So that's why we had huge participation in our project. The next condition is the making the procurers pre-agree to the PPA. That is, we made the procurers, because very often there is a dispute between the terms of the PPA. So the agreement should be arrived at before the signing of the PPA, before the bidding stage. So all the procurers should agree to the PPA, and this should happen before the bidding. So it is very important to talk to other procurers and make them agree to the PPA. You just pardon me for 5 seconds. I think I need to charge my computer. Extremely sorry for this. So we have to make the procurers pre-agree to the PPA. Then the other important issue that, see, there is a bidder bidding not from your close to where you are, but from bidding from somewhere else. How does he know that if there are 300 government colleges, what sort of colleges they are? So we developed a data room, which actually showed in great detail the nature of these buildings. For example, if there is a project category with all the colleges, then if you see, there is a folder for each college in front of you. And for each college, you have the Google coordinates, you have the solar PV array layout superimposed on the Google image, you have the electricity consumption history, and you have the entire pre-engineering design. So for example, this is an example of a college. So if you have, so you have a Google image, you can see how many buildings there are. Even if there is a tree next to it, then if the panels are not to be kept where the shadow of the tree falls, it shows that. So for each one of the 291 colleges, there would be a data room like this, which would show the bidder that this is how he has got to structure his project. So that reduces the uncertainty as far as the developer is concerned, and then he can bid much lower. Then you should have extensive pre-bid consultations. We had extensive consultations. This is an example of our pre-bid meeting. So we called all the bidders. These days, this is before the COVID era hit. So we had physical pre-bid meetings, but now suppose you can have pre-bid meetings through webinars. So I must thank ISA for having been a part even of our pre-bid meetings. And our pre-bid meetings were webcast to all the ISA member countries. And the director and senior officers of ISA had also participated in these pre-bid meetings. The other is important thing is tariff escalation. I talked to you in the beginning that the low tariff of 2 cents that we got was one of the reasons was tariff escalation. The issue is that DISCOM tariff increases every year. The comparison that the beneficiary is making is between the DISCOM tariff today and the tariff that comes under the solar project. As the DISCOM tariff increases every year, so it makes sense that the RESCO tariff also increases. That helps us to get a lower first year tariff, and it makes it simpler for others to be convinced about the value of our project or the utility of our project. So I have always had tariff escalation, and I would strongly advocate it. The other issue is payment security. As the developer is investing for 25 years, he or she should be confident that they should get payment for the next 25 years. So there should be some means of satisfying the bidders that they would get a payment for the remaining 25 years. Then the project documents should aim at risk mitigation. Now that is a big chapter by itself. I have a few slides on that. We can talk about that. But the basic issue is that the risk has to be managed. The developers have to feel that they're not walking into a risky project. I would tell you the various technical issues how we can do that, but that is really the meat of the project. That how you can lower the risk of the project in terms of the risk profile as seen by the developer. Because if they see it as a low risk project, then the expectation of return on equity is lower, and they get debt at lower rates. Another thing is that if you have a tied loan, so we, for example, had a tied loan from the World Bank through SBI and through ADB from Punjab National Bank and through IRDA. So that was a part of our tender itself. So if a bidder wins our bid, subject to due diligence, it is known that he would get a bank loan of World Bank through SBI or a bank loan of ADB through Punjab National Bank. So these were actually, you can see, it was actually a part of our tender document. What are the loan terms of World Bank, SBI? What are the loan terms of IRDA? These were a part of our loan terms of the tender document itself. So these are the various, I would say, ingredients of making a successful RESCO project. The most important part here is the risk mitigation. I think it would take longer than the time permits today, but I would just show them to you. If there are any questions later, then you can ask them. Broadly speaking, we try to lesser the cost of the developer, and we try to make sure that it is not perceived as a risky project on their behalf. I mean, I'll just give you a few examples because I don't think we have the time for each one of them. The third point, for example, early monetization. What happens that a medical college could be, for example, 5 buildings. Now, if you have that, you would start paying him for the power generated only if the entire project is completed. It's possible that he can complete 5 buildings, but not the 6th. And not because of any fault of his, but because the medical college did not give the 6th building to the developer. So because of that, we kept a provision of early monetization, meaning that as if he starts solar project on 1 building, then he would be paid for that building, because anyway he's producing electricity and he's being paid for electricity produced from that. Then we had a provision of change in law. Change in law is another important provision, that if there is a change in national law, then the responsibility is not of the developer, but the beneficiary pays for that. So the number of issues that we have. Then I would just talk about the simpler aspect of best practices during the RESCO tender. We used social media extensively during our entire tender procedure. As I mentioned earlier, the pre-bid meetings of webcast to the ISA member countries. We did a press conference within an hour of the bid opening. So that gave a lot of transparency to the entire process. Furthermore, I would share with you that in the second RESCO tender, even the director of World Bank, Mr. Puliti, He was present during the opening of the tender. The tender opening happened in front of him, and actually we gave the PPA, we gave the order to the party right there. Actually, you see Mr. Puliti, at the back. We should have had a better photograph of his, but he's standing right at the back. So we opened the tender in RE Invest, and within the next few minutes, we typed the work order and gave it to the party. So that gave a lot of transparency to the entire process, that what you're doing is very clean, it's very transparent, it's very efficient. And then the other thing is that we should have fast signing of the power purchase agreement. Very often what happens, the bidding happens, but power purchase agreement signing takes place over the next very, very months or years. What we did was that if we were signing power purchase agreements for the colleges, we called a meeting of all the college principals to the state capital. And outside the meeting hall, power purchase agreement of each one of the colleges was signed. Then if for individual, for example, the left one you see is of the police. So all the buildings of the police department, all the PPAs were signed in one go. We have moved further beyond. ISA was kind enough to take our team to Ghana and Guinea. And now ISA, as a part of this exercise, has, I understand with the Honorable DG Sir's guidance, has circulated a template to all the countries, all the member countries, and requesting the ISA member countries to send this information to ISA so that ISA can help the member countries to set up these projects. So I would not go into detail, but the first one is essentially talks about the rate at which you are presently getting power from the DISCOM. It just provides whether at what rate you are getting power. So it sets a benchmark that if you can supply, if a solar project can supply power at lesser than that rate, then the solar project, RESCO project, is viable. It also asks a few other questions if it is allowed to set up solar rooftop on the building. So I'll just read out the first question is only about the rate of power. The second is there any restriction on sale of electricity by a solar developer using solar rooftop system within the premises of that building itself, wherein the transaction is entirely behind the utility meter? What if there is no export of power from the premises? Does it allow you to use your electricity in-house? Are there any approvals needed from the DISCOM? The next question is there any capacity restriction on the solar rooftop project in your country? What are the national regulations regarding that? The next is there any provision regarding excess energy settlement? And so on. So these are very, very basic questions. So if you provide these basic questions to the ISA, then ISA can help you in setting up a solar rooftop project in your country. The second part of the template is really the taxes structure. Is there any tax? Is there any subsidy on getting solar items in your country? Just that. And the last one is just an example of a few buildings that you have which come to your mind. This does not talk of the rooftop space. ISA understands that it is very difficult for the NFP to go and measure the rooftop on each and every building. So they just asked for the name, and through Google coordinates, it would be possible for ISA to find out the rough capacity that a rooftop could take. So that is the brief presentation I had on making the sun smile. But the important part is that you make the sun smile at zero investment, without any investment on your behalf. And that is the message that I would have, that it's very easy to set up a rooftop solar project without making any capital investment, because it is viable. The only thing that is required is that you have to set up a good project. The project should be de-risked. It should be seen as a low-risk project by the developers. That should encourage a lot of participation from the developers. It should be seen as a upfront, transparent process, so that a lot of people have faith in the entire process. If there are any questions regarding, I didn't really talk in great detail about the how to de-risk, what are the contractual conditions to de-risk, but I would be more than happy to share it. There are also some questions, I am told, at the end of the presentation. If there is any discussion, I would be more than happy to share that. And I would again thank the Honorable Director General and the senior advisor of ISA for giving me this opportunity to be able to speak to friends from various ISA member countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for making such a wonderful presentation. Now I would request Mr. Sudarshan Kumar Saini, former Senior Vice President, Tata DDL, and he is also a member of our expert committee of International Solar Alliance and vast experience in rooftop solar project implementation. So I'll request him to make his presentation. Mr. Saini, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Good afternoon, DG sir, and all the dignitaries, excellencies. Thank you for this opportunity. So, excellent presentation by Mr. Srivastava. I think it is a rule book now for any aggregated project which any country wants to take up. Excellent one. So, I will also like to go back to my experience when this rooftop, especially focusing on rooftop. So it was launched in India by MNRE. So MNRE, which was formed in 2006, had one objective of creating awareness about rooftop solar, what are the benefits and how it should be done. So first thing which was done was to create a kind of awareness and take up a demonstration program on state and grid connected solar power plant. The idea was to showcase the technology works, that net metering technology, grid connected project works. So therefore, Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, which was a progressive utility in Delhi. So we, along with Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in 2007, took up this project, and in 2009, this project of 1 megawatt was commissioned. I think the next slide, please. I'll show you the photograph. Next slide, please. This is primarily showing that how many people in 620 million people, 2/3 of population live without electricity in sub-Saharan Africa. The focus here, I think the difference between India and other countries in member countries is the focus here was to move to clean energy or renewable energy from conventional energy from the perspective of combating climate change. But here, in case of ISA member countries, the primary focus which ISA has kept is energy access to all. So therefore, there has to be a state level intervention at every stage. And fortunately, today ISA is there to mentor everything, because that has huge experience of global experience of countries which have actually developed solar in their own countries. Like India has traveled this journey of almost about 14 years now, and there is no need to reinvent things as far as providing energy access to people is concerned. Next slide, please. So this is what we had done with MNRE in 2008, and we commissioned about 8 solar plants. And one of the most significant was megawatt class grid connected plant in Delhi, in one of the store, where dual utilization of land has been achieved. We had an open store, we had put up a structure, superstructure, and 1 megawatt grid connected plant was put up, which is still running today. And so the cost that time was almost about $3 million, which now over the years, today if we have this kind of plan, so it will cost hardly about $700,000. Then again, we are in case of Delhi, to help Delhi government also to showcase and create awareness in resident welfare associations. We had put up 1 kilowatt Hota cabins solar lighting systems. And then the important part was to build capacity, training and vendor development, which was also done. So we have a training center in Delhi where we had put up about 100 kilowatt solar plant. You can see the photograph. So the idea was any rooftop project, because if you see the journey of solar in India, commendable job has been done by MNRE as far as utility scale is concerned. But rooftop is still far behind what is expected by or what is targeted by everyone. So the reason is that, like in power sector, distribution is a last mile most difficult item or value chain in the value chain. Similar is the rooftop project. It has to reach out to every household or large masses. So therefore, the implementation has to be done in a very structured way. So simultaneously, in 2008, we had done a study of the whole of Delhi through a US consultant, and it was found that there are smaller rooftops. So how do we make affordable and advanced kind of rooftop solar program? So there was a continuous next slide, please. So continuous follow-up was done with establishment, small industries to go for rooftop solar. So that was, and one of the important part, therefore, is that there has to be a well-incentivized solar policy in each country. So I'm just giving an example of Delhi solar policy, which was taken out in 2016. So how it took care of various stakeholders. So the distribution companies, they got the benefit of renewable purchase obligation, because there they have to buy certain renewable power. So any rooftop project which takes up, which happens in state, the benefit of RPO was given to the DISCOM. The policy also mandated that all government-owned rooftops will have solar plants in next 5 years. So possibly in Delhi now, almost 75% of the government buildings have solar rooftop. So then for the residential consumers, there was a capital subsidy of 30% given by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. And similarly, the state government had given every household who was putting up the rooftop solar plant. And there was a state nodal agency created for taking up this effective implementation of the policy. Next slide, please. So this is a society awareness for some pictures that we used to have a workshop for resident associations, industrial association, commercial establishments to show the benefit of and then so this is a continuous journey, and today also after 14 years we are continuing this drive and being eligible award for promoting solar, because it was though it was cutting down our bottom line. So the idea was that it's a national mission and one has to do it, whether to save the climate. Next slide, please. So there are different models, like Mr. Srivastava has explained. Capex model is there, then there is a RESCO model. But I think most important, in last 14 years, we have seen the product development in solar panels, improvement performance-wise, size-wise, inverters and others. But strictly speaking, what we need in case of rooftop promotion is uh, innovating financing, and which can take care of the risk mitigation, because any developer looks for, anybody who invests, he will look for some kind of risk mitigation, because unless the payment security is there, it will be difficult for any investor to invest. And rooftop being a smaller distributed generation for 2 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt, or maybe 100 kilowatt. So that gets a little lesser response when it is not aggregated, especially say institutions. It is easier because you can aggregate the demand for residential. We have seen in various parts of the country the individual owners, building owners, they do not go for investments. Next, sir. So this is a RESCO model which is already explained. Next one. So it is therefore once again I would say that policies are very important to for supporting rooftop solar, especially when we are talking about energy access to all, because it has to be a national level goal. It has to be a top-down approach. The government of each country has to have a complete policy in place for vendor development and capacity building. ISA has been doing a lot of work for training and all. So I think one more aspect is important, that every DISCOM personnel also needs net metering policies or gross metering and connectivity with the grid. So therefore, a program for DISCOMs will also be important in ISA member countries. Then electricity regulations have to be promoting rooftop grid connected rooftop solar systems, like a net energy metering policy in India. And then the one important part is that it has to be in the beginning a subsidized kind of project for residential and especially non-profit organizations, because then the rooftop promotion can take up at little faster pace. And once the prices etc. comes down, then slowly these things can be reviewed. And for example, mandatory rooftop solar installation in all government buildings, education institutions could be one important aspect for member countries. So solar should receive high visibility and support. And I have been thinking that all the member countries who have got their offices in Delhi and India, they must go and demonstrate by putting up solar rooftop in their buildings in Delhi or elsewhere in the country. So that will show a great message to each their country and the people of their country, that how important is this solar rooftop. So the demonstration project, I think, should start from all the offices and buildings which they have in Delhi. Next. Uh, See, that's what adoption of zero. See, in case of Delhi and India, if high commissions go for certain rooftop projects, so there is a scheme going on for government buildings, and probably ISA can talk to MNRE if the same can be extended, where in the RESCO model, the empaneled vendors can put up the rooftop in high commissions building. The rates are already explored through strict tendering process, and the government customers are already paying that rate. So similar rates, on the basis of similar rates, probably high commission buildings can also have those rooftops. And I'll show you a kind of virtual survey which I have done for almost about 35, 40 embassies in Delhi, where aggregated demand of rooftop on conservative side is almost about 5 megawatt. So perhaps the idea which Mr. Srivastava gave can work here, and at a very cheaper rate, all the high commissions can go for rooftop demonstration projects, and at the same time they can save almost about 40 to 45% of their electricity costs every month. Next. And that without any the current rate in Delhi is about 4 rupees 15 paisa, which government has finalized without subsidy. With subsidy, it will be a little lower. Next. This is a list of embassies which is about 5 megawatt kind of thing. Like High Commission of Ghana has a capacity of 150 kilowatt rooftop plant. Similarly, Embassy of France, which is a founder member, one of the founder member of ISA, so they have a capacity of 100 kilowatt rooftop solar plant. So they can really demonstrate to their countries all the member countries that rooftop projects in has taken up in their offices. Next. Next. We did some sample virtual survey of previous slide, please. This is a slide which shows we have selected 10 countries of LDCs and other countries where we took up the hospitals where the ISA is planning to have, say, $50,000 for demonstration projects, especially in hospitals and all in these countries. So you can see that these are the capacity 10 countries. For example, in Kiribati, BTO hospital has a capacity of 10 kilowatt, but in case of Benin, there is a hospital which can have 30 kilowatt rooftop solar plant and can save 54,000 units which they consume from power distribution company. So they can have, so similarly in Mauritius, there is Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital where a 250 kilowatt rooftop plant can be put up and they can generate about 4.5 lakh units per year. So similarly in Papua New Guinea, 90 kilowatt can be put up in one of the hospital, which is important. So this is how we can take up the demonstration project. But the issue here will be, the most important will be selection of local vendors, because it will be difficult for vendors from outside other countries to go for such smaller projects. ISA can do the mentoring part and hand-holding, but I think vendor development and capacity building in these countries for these smaller projects would be very important. As I said, when we had put up 1 megawatt plant in 2008, it costed us $3 million US. But that time the money was not the important factors in of the country, that what is rooftop solar. Similarly here also probably we can do that. Next, sir. Next slide, sir. So the challenge is, as I said, current policies may not be sufficient and those have to be reviewed. So countries, states must go for incentives or financial support or mitigate the risk of developers. Targeting and outreach is very important. Promotion through effective communication and awareness programs. MNRE has got a very structured way how they have taken up every aspect of solarization, and probably those same thing can be disseminated. So vendor development and capacity building. See, solar industry in India has given jobs to millions of people. I think this is one way to take care of employment scenario also in the member countries. Then payment security is another big challenge, according to me. Innovative financing, how solar can be financed. We can have lease model, we can have loan model, but at the end, the important thing is that there has to be some kind of guarantee from state or from various banks or from customers' credentials. So the policy of net metering, etc., should be very clearly spelled out. And then customers should have trust that, yes, they'll be getting quality installations at reasonable prices. Next.
Please be quick, Mr.
So this is a task force, and the country's heads should actually take very play a very important part, and they can take a full involvement in this whole demonstration project. Then, of course, the setting up of project units. finding out the journey, the experience which we had, and Rooftop to go for rural as well as urban customers. So there has to be a strategy, there has to be a policy in place, and there has to be a capacity building exercise extensively done for this, for taking up rooftop solar projects. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Saini. So now I would request Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal, Managing Director, M Plus Solar India, which is one of the leading company in India in providing end-to-end service in rooftop solar projects, to give his presentation. I would request all the speakers to please stick to the timelines. Thank you. Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal.
So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, ISA, for providing me this opportunity to interact with the member countries. And I can see there are a lot of delegates from many countries who are present here. Uh, I have a small presentation to share with you, and obviously you have heard very sort of experienced views from Mr. Srivastava and Mr. Saini about what are we really doing in India. But what I will probably do is I will take a little bit of a uh, step back and go into little more basics about what uh, what exactly is that we can possibly do in the rooftop segment. So uh, I hope this presentation is visible. So I will move forward. So okay. So I will just give you a very quick introduction to our company, what we do. So M Plus is a company, and I think many of the countries that we are working as part of the ISA framework are in the stage where possibly India was in 2012, 13 or 11, 12, even earlier than that, when the rooftop solar and general solar was in the early stages. So that is the time around which we started. So M Plus set up its first 100 kilowatt plant in 2014. And since then, I'm happy to share with you that we have crossed almost 800 megawatts of solar plants, which includes a lot of rooftop plants. These are almost like 400 rooftop plants that we have done with sizes ranging from right from 3 kilowatt to 8 megawatt on the rooftop. So the beauty of the rooftop solar is that no size is too small and no size is too large. So this is, I think, is one good part. So even if we have these small countries and the small roofs, we have a potential where we can use this solar energy and we can say that we are generating some part of the electricity ourselves. So I think that's a beautiful part of it. So we should not get worried about, okay, India is a large country and other countries are smaller. Every country has the potential to utilize solar. Uh, so we work across many states of the country, and as a company, M Plus, though it was started by me personally, but now it is a part of Petronas, which many of you may be aware. Petronas may be part of the oil and gas industry within your own countries. It is a Fortune 500 company and fairly large company. So for Petronas, this is a change from the oil and gas industry, from the fossil fuel to the renewable industry. So you can imagine the importance of the renewable industry and you being part of this International Solar Alliance, that how important it is from the energy transition and overall the economic transition of the world. As a lot of companies are going into renewable energy, leaving behind the fossil fuels, the oil and gas companies are moving into renewable energy. We are moving from IC engines into electric engines. We are using a lot of electricity into cooking and other ancillary activities. So there is a significant shift in the energy change, and solar is the cornerstone of that. Can have solar PV, which generates DC electricity. We convert that into AC. So there can be three types of different models within the grid. So there can be standalone with a DG set. Uh, this can be standalone, but there can be DG set, which is providing the backup power. There can be grid connected, which is the normally used system in India. So there is a grid which is connected, which provides the backup power and the solar provides also the power to the household or to the industry, and there can be a grid and DG both. So because at sometimes we may not have even the grid available, so you can also provide DG. Now going forward, what we are also seeing is that for a 100 kilowatt plant, we require 1200 square meters of area. And a typical 100 kilowatt solar rooftop plant in India generates around 140,000 units of electricity. So this generation will vary from one country to another. And at the bottom, what you see is that this 100 kilowatt plant can also save almost 4,300 trees being planted in the context of the Indian grid, which is largely fossil fuel fired. So you heard about the comments about the net metering. So I will give a little more color onto the net metering. What exactly net metering is that, solar generates during the daytime, and if a household or an industry doesn't have the requirement during the daytime, what do you do with the electricity? So what we do in net metering is we pump this excess electricity into the grid, and this is recorded in a meter. So there is a meter which is a bi-directional meter. So meter also records the exports, what is going out from the rooftop solar, and gets credited into a distribution company account. And when you get the monthly bill, these units get settled. So this is called the net metering mechanism. So when we come about how to promote rooftop solar in a particular country, I think one of the important points to understand is that we need to have enabling policies. So many of the countries may not have a net metering policy at this stage. So net metering policy implementation is important so that whenever there is excess electricity that can go into the grid, and the consumers are encouraged to set up rooftop plants. Uh, some of these ownership models have already been covered by Mr. Saini and Mr. Srivastava. The predominant models that are used in India are the Opex or the RESCO model, where developer or the investor owns the asset and you run it as the investor. Like we do all of our projects under the Opex model, and what we do is that we own these projects, we take all the risk of the technology, operation, maintenance of the plant. At the end of the day, as a customer, you have to pay for the electricity that you generated. So all the risks are taken away as a consumer. So this is one predominant model in the Indian context, and probably this is something which provides a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities for people in the other member countries of ISA also. The other model is a clear one where there's a capex model. People can buy their own solar plants, set it up, maintain it, and get it maintained by outside agents into it. The third one, which is also can be used in some countries, because as I understand, some of the countries don't allow a PP model. So there, what happens is you have to lease the system. So, for example, I'm aware that in Sri Lanka, uh, a third party cannot set up a rooftop plant and enter into a PPA with the consumer. So you have to lease the system to the user, and the leasing can be something where the leasing company also takes care of the equipment. So these can be like the broadly the three structures in which one can set up a solar plant. One can call it a business model also, that okay, I will just sell the system, or I will own the system also, I will sell electricity, or I will just lease the system. So there can be different models depending on what the peculiarities of a particular country or the industry are. Then I will just quickly run through some of the challenges, because as we have implemented these 300, 400 projects of varying kind of rooftop models, we have faced some challenges, and we have learned it sometimes in a hard way, sometimes through learning of others, and sometimes we have developed our own innovative challenges. So we have to take care of the design challenges. For example, every rooftop plant has to be customized. The design has to be customized to take care of wind pressure, height, seismic data, etc., etc. You need to take care of a lot of health and safety practices. So all these things have to be built in. So when people are working at height, we have to be very careful about nobody should fall down, and there are proper safety barricades. There are rooftop lights, etc., which need to be covered. Similarly, when we are into the construction, again proper PP, standardized construction practices, so that every plant comes out as a good plant. The workmanship has to be good. So those type of practices have to develop, and I think this will come over a period of time. I I don't think these can be done in a hurry, and that is where probably some of the member countries of ISA can take advantage of what we do in India. We can provide you the right type of technology, we can provide you the right equipment, right vendor base, and even the contractors who can actually do this job in a reasonable manner. Similarly, when we are going to the O&M, which is probably the easiest part of this rooftop solar plant, but still some bit of care is required. I think again, this can be taken care of some analytics tool, putting up some SCADA monitoring system, and also doing the proper cleaning practices. Some of the design best practices these can go into a lot of detail, like you have to install walkways. When you're doing the cabling, what type of practices you need to manage, how do you do the inverter mounting. A lot of time you will see people will just leave the inverters in open. You need to also provide them some shade, because otherwise the efficiency goes down significantly. When we are doing the construction, these walkways are very important. These are some examples. I'm not going into too much detail, just giving you more like the visual illustration of what can potentially go wrong and what type of practices people should be following when you're looking at the rooftop projects. The landing platform when you are doing the rooftop access, the rooftop safety, as we talked about, walkways, skylights, edge barricading, uh, the yellow painting, etc. So that people, because we have had instances where people just fell off the roof. So these are important things to incorporate into your overall workmanship practices. Uh, so again, that's quality checks. When you're doing the when you're buying the modules and inverters, one has to be careful about whether they are ISO certified, IEC certified, whether the proper certification is there or not, what kind of third-party checks should be done about various things. Earthing is again very important factor, because in many places the earthing is not proper, and this can lead to major fire hazards. So these are the types of things which people have to really take care when we are implementing these projects. Similarly, in O&M, what can be the best practices? Preventive, predictive, proactive maintenance. In most of our plants, I can say that we keep like more than 99% uptime. It's a 99% plus uptime. And depending on the scale, people can build their own technology system, so that you have a online ticket management system. You also have the online analytics. So for example, all our own plants are covered through online monitoring systems. So this become an important element of how we operate these plants without actually visiting them. Because if we start visiting every small plant, this is not going to be viable for us. I'll just quickly take you through a couple of installations, just to give you an idea about what are these case studies. So this is a plant which is located at an airport. It is in Bangalore. Airport is operated by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which manufactures a lot of defense equipments for India. And because this was a defense airport, the permissions, approvals, the reflective surfaces, because they are like the warplanes which are landing on this runway. So we had to do a special study to ensure that there is no glare to the to the pilots who are landing at this airport. So these are the types of things one has to take care when you're implementing these projects. Uh, I'll also give you another example of this is a plant which is at a metro depot. So this is a rapid metro in Gurgaon near Delhi, and this is set up on a depot, and the space was a constraint, and obviously as a customer they want to maximize the capacity. This is a running trains there, so we have to be very careful about the safety aspects, how we are going to implement it. And so we took all the safety precautions, and finally implemented a good project. It's a 400 kilowatt project which is running successfully for last 3 years. This is an example of a printing press. This is the Hindustan Times printing press in Greater Noida. Again, the challenge is that there's a running press. It cannot be off for even for a single day. So while the whole thing is running, you want to ensure that whatever you're doing on the roof doesn't impact the operations. So these are some of the criticalities of the rooftop solar plants when you are working in more complex environments. So what you do is that you take down everything as a completely knockdown kit, and say that okay, now I'm going to install it in the shortest possible time, so that there is no disruption to the printing press. So like for example, we did this plant like in 30 days. So this is the type of thing what can be done if the whole approach is properly planned. And this is a 500 kilowatt capacity plant. The last one I want to highlight is a residential plant. So we have recently started the residential plant, and you can see that this is a special structure that we have developed only for the residential houses, which is a wooden pergola. So what happens is that as a house owner, a lot of people don't want to waste their roofs. And we came out with a solution that they are not even wasting their roof. The roof actually starts looking much more beautiful than what it was before. So this becomes like a almost like a seating space for them. It's like a party space for them, and they can do whatever they want to do under this space, and their roof remains intact. So like in this particular case, one of our customers is carrying on with her gardening activity. So she's very fond of gardening, and she can do gardening under this while the electricity is being generated. So these can be some of the innovations one what can do in the rooftop solar also. Obviously the design and the wind loading factor, etc., all have to be taken care. Again, these are like the pre-manufactured and the knockdown kind of kit type of thing. So this installation we did it like in flat in 2 days, so without wasting customers' time. So these are some of the things which I thought I'll just share with you about what we do at M Plus and how many of the countries, member countries of ISA, can look forward to creating their own industries within their countries, and to whatever extent we can be of help from India, from ISA. I think we remain completely open. These are again some of the plants. The one you see here is a Yamaha motor. This is a 8 megawatt plant on the rooftop. So this is almost like 25 acres of roof which has been covered here. So I think with that, I would thank again ISA for providing me this opportunity to share some of the work that we do at M Plus. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal, for sharing such an interesting case studies of solar rooftop projects being implemented by the company. Thank you very much. So now, next session will be on will be Abhishek Shah from KPMG. He'll be making a presentation on various business models being available and that are possible in rooftop solar projects. Over to Mr. Abhishek Shah.
Thank you, Sharma ji. I'll just share my screen. So, is this visible?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. So, just to start, Your Excellency Tripathi ji, Director General of ISA, Senior Advisor, Sir, respected national focal points, and other senior officials from the ISA member countries, the various speakers in this session, as well as ISA colleagues. I'm Abhishek Shah. So I am the team leader of the KPMG team, which works with ISA. And I will be presenting on the various rooftop business models. Okay, and what business models work in which countries, what are the different types, what has been the experience of solar business models, how they have evolved over the years. So that is what I will try to cover. So as some of the earlier speakers in the session covered, so there are primarily two categories of business models in rooftop solar. One is the CapEx model. The CapEx model is essentially where the whole upfront payment for a rooftop solar system is made by the customer to the developer or the installer. The second category is the Opex model, or which is again known as the RESCO model, which Srivastava said when he was presenting about Madhya Pradesh. In this model, what is done is essentially the customer doesn't pay the whole money upfront, but it is paid over a course of 15 to 25 years in monthly payments. So this Opex model evolved in US around 10 years ago, and it was essentially done because customers found it difficult to pay the whole amount at one go. So these are the two models. And another model, so these are primarily two models. Then there are other small variants around these, some of which I will describe in my presentation. Then there is leasing and all, but essentially these are the two key models. And the third model is a hybrid model, which we have recently pioneered with the Kerala distribution company very recently. In what we did is we tried to bring the benefits of both models together. So what we have done is that the customer, the utility, as well as the developer pay some money upfront which can be around 1/3 to 2/3 amount of the total system cost, and the rest is paid over a period of 25 years. So what this model does is that it reduces the risk on the developer, because he doesn't have to wait for 25 years to get his payments. Some amount, some large chunky amount he gets upfront, the rest is divided over the next 25 years. So I'll cover some of these models. But again, what I would like to just say to all the member countries is there is no one size that fits all. Okay, because some models work in some places very well, some models work in other places. It also it's not only about the economics. Okay, we all know that solar energy, the costs have become very low, but that doesn't mean that rooftop solar has become easy to install for everyone, because in rooftop solar, the DISCOM, the regulator, the policymakers also play a very important role, because essentially all rooftop solar systems have been in urban areas generally have to be connected to the grid, and for that you require approvals, and then the policy and regulations also make a very important role. So even though the costs in India for rooftop solar energy are almost half to even what I would say 1/3 of what the normal grid prices are, still rooftop solar has not grown to the extent that it should have. And there are lots of policy hurdles, regulatory hurdles. Then there is the financing aspect also, which is a common issue across all developing countries, because a lot of the customers are low-income customers. They do not have the capacity to pay all the money upfront, and because of the credit worthiness problems, the financiers are also unwilling to lend to these customers. So those are some of the issues. I have 8 business models, but given that my time is limited, I'll just cover 2-3 models. Anyway, this whole presentation will be shared by Sharmaji to all the participants in this panel. And so if you have any questions, you can come back and ask us offline, and we will be happy to answer your questions. So the first model that I would like to cover is a very unique model, okay, and which is very applicable to all the ISA member countries. So what we have seen is that business models are generally targeted towards what you would say the middle or higher income customers, while the lower strata of customers are generally ignored. So customers whose requirements are very low, let's say around 100 to 200 units a month, they are generally ignored by the rooftop developers, because the paying capacity is not high, the ticket size is small. So the developers, the private developers will never go and, market their products to them. And the benefits of rooftop solar energy, the problem is taken all by the higher end, higher income customers. So this was a very unique model, and it was developed by a KPMG team in Andhra Pradesh over the course of 1 year. So what this model does is it targets, okay, a very low income customers who only consume 100 to 200 units a month. Their needs could be met by a system size of only 1 kilowatt. But as you very well know, that most of these customers are low income, they do not have the paying capacity. So what was done, a very unique model was set up. One of the state-owned banks was also taken as a partner in the scheme. So the DISCOM paid the upfront capital for the system, while the rest was taken as a loan from the bank. The customers did not have to pay much. They hardly paid only 5%. And since the electricity bill was heavily subsidized by the distribution utility, the distribution utility was willing to take some part on their own behalf, some of the payments on their own behalf. And the EMIs, which was paid by the customers, it was made in such a manner that their EMI, the electricity EMIs would be lower than the electricity bill that they would generally give. So what happened, this was a win-win situation for everyone. The DISCOMs gained because their subsidy amount that they paid to these lower slab customers decreased. The customers gained because the bill that they paid was the same as that they had to pay earlier. Okay, they did not pay it higher, and after 7 years, they started owning the system, and their electricity bills became essentially zero. The banks gained because their EMIs was being collected by the distribution utility. So they did not have a default risk. So this was a very good system. It's a very good model, but it requires a lot of work because it requires a lot of customers. Most of them are very small. They are 1 kilowatt systems. So the overall size doesn't look big, but the benefits go to a large number of people. And they are all, poor, lower income people. So that is one model that was done. This is the model, how the whole payment and how the whole system worked. The 40% of capital subsidy was also taken from the central government, which made the project economics even better. And the utility played a very central role because they collected the EMIs from the customers and then they paid to the banks. So that was one model. Another model is the solar off-grid model. So what has a new trend right now is that storage costs have decreased, solar energy costs have decreased. So now it has become possible in some cases to have solar married with storage systems and installed. So a solar smart off-grid rooftop system was started by UNERT, which is the renewable energy agency in Kerala, and they provided 1 to 5 kilowatt systems in the off-grid mode. They also provided a subsidy of 20%, which they gave directly to the developer. The terms of the payments were then mutually decided between the customer and the developer. So this was the whole model that was done, and it was meant for customers who did not have access to the grid. So it improved the energy access in the state. The third model is a Innovation Africa model. So this model is slightly different. It's again a capex. It comes under the capex category. What was done is that it involved a lot of community engagement and sensitization. So Innovation Africa's in-country teams work with local partners and assessed which facilities would benefit from rooftop solar. The capex cost was made by donations. So it wasn't given by the state or the customers, it was meant by donations. And the community elected a committee which would manage the system ownership as well as the operations and maintenance. And the model was made sustainable by deploying a micro enterprise model where some electricity business was powered, which generated revenues to pay for the maintenance of the rooftop solar system. So that model has been currently being implemented in 2 of 3 countries in Africa: Malawi, Tanzania, and Uganda. So this is the model description on how the whole payment and the electricity flows across various stakeholders in the ecosystem. Another model, again, which was pioneered in Kerala last year, and KPMG had helped KSEB in implementing this model, was a rooftop leasing model. So this is somewhat similar to a RESCO model, but not exactly the same. So how this whole model works is that the utility, owns the rooftop solar system. So what they do is they go to the customers, which are residential houses, and they sign an agreement with the rooftop owner that they would install a rooftop solar system. So the utility pays for the entire system, and they get the EPC, get the system installed and everything. How the rooftop owner gains is that he gets a rebate on the electricity bill, which was equivalent to 10% of the overall solar power that was generated from the system. So here, essentially, what happens is the rooftop owner gets between 20 to 30,000 rupees every year without having to do anything, without having to invest anything. So it's a good source of generating a small income by utilizing the empty space. And the utility also gains a lot because it easily gets access to the land area to build its rooftop solar system. And again, this is again a very different model, okay, which I don't think has been implemented anywhere, and which has again been pioneered. So what is happening is this EPC RESCO hybrid model that it was approved by MNRE and the state regulator last year. This has been tendered. This is a 150 megawatt capacity, and I think the bidders are in the process of being selected. So this is a very unique model. So I'll just try to explain this in terms of using this graphic. So here what is done is that the consumer only pays 12 to 25% of the overall capital cost. The rest of the capital is brought in by the utility, which is KSEP, and also a subsidy from the central government, which meets the rest, which is basically 75 to 87% of the capital cost. And the utility installs basically they select the rooftop developers using a tendering process. 2/3 of the capital cost, okay, is paid upfront to the developer. Okay, so he gets 2/3 of his money upfront. The remaining 1/3 is paid over a period of 25 years. So the developer, basically his financing costs reduces drastically in this situation. And there is also an interest for him to maintain the system well and ensure that the rooftop system generates, the optimum amount of energy, because he is getting the payment over 25 years. The consumer also gains, depending on how much capital he contributes, he gets a rebate of 20 to 50% of the solar generation. So if you see this whole model, the risks are shared between the utility and the customer and the rooftop developer. The skin in the game is by all the three parties, and all the three parties gain also. Again, this is a virtual net metering model. This has been discussed a lot. So I'll not again, go into great detail about this model. So I'll just move to the next model. Again, another leasing model. That leasing model I've already covered under the Kerala model. Again, it's about leasing the. What happens is that instead of the customer owning the rooftop solar system, it's like a sale and lease back model. So he makes lease payments instead of paying the whole money upfront. This is the last model which I would like to cover. Again, a very important model. What we have seen, okay, and it's still a major problem in India, in almost all the states that we have seen over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. That's that the distribution utilities are heavily resisting rooftop solar systems because it takes away their higher paying customers. So there's a lot of reluctance among distribution utilities, and hurdles are created in terms of getting approvals, okay, giving net metering connections, giving bi-directional meters. Even though some even though the Indian Central Ministry is incentivizing them, okay, but still what you see in terms of regulations, in terms of resistance, it's still very high. So this model, what it does is makes the utility as the RESCO. So here what happens is the utility becomes the developer. So the utility goes to a customer, signs a PPA with the customer. They agree on a rate which is typically lower than the electricity rate which the customer is paying. They sign an agreement over 25 years. The utility finances the whole system, gets a installer, installs the system, okay, and they buy the power the same way, okay, like a normal developer does. So this is the master RESCO model. In some cases, the utility does not pay the whole money upfront to the installer. They sign an agreement where they pay over 25 years. So they get money from the customer, then they pay to the installer, and they keep a trading margin in between. So that is the master RESCO model. Again, this has been implemented by the state of Chandigarh, not the state, the city of Chandigarh, as well as in Kerala. So this has also been done in a small way. So this is the summary. I will not go through the summary. You can all please look through the summary and see what are the different parameters, how the different models work in different parameters. So that's the whole thing. So if you have any questions, you can please send the questions to Mr. Sharma, or and me and my KPMG team will be happy to answer this offline, because all this is quite a lot to digest in 10-15 minutes. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sharma. That's all from my side.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Abhishek. Very interesting presentation, giving different options of rooftop projects, models, business models to ISA member countries. Now, I would request His Excellency Mr. Sulakshana Jayawardena. He is National Focal Point of Sri Lanka and Director Development from Ministry of Power, Sri Lanka, to make his presentation. He'll be sharing his experiences on rooftop solar projects. his country.
Okay.
Over to Mr. Jayavardhan.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. I'll share my slides. Hello. Can you?
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yes.
Should we check?
Good evening. Once again, I would like to thank ISA for organizing this webinar and also giving me the opportunity to present Sri Lankan experience on rooftop development program. In fact, we introduced solar in way back early 90s as a standalone systems to provide electricity for people who were living in the remote areas. Then gradually we introduced the systems to the sort of grid connection systems and later mechanism for make the payment for surplus. Likewise, we have implemented solar rooftop program in Sri Lanka during last 2-3 decades. And this is the outline that I am going to discuss with you, discuss about the background information about the solar rooftop program, progress of the solar rooftop program, and I will touch upon some of the experiences and challenges and strategies and way forward and what are the objectives in the future that we are going to achieve. And when it comes to the background, you can see that in early 90s, we implemented solar rooftop program for remote people who were living in the remote areas. During that time, we were able to install approximately 136,000 solar rooftop systems. These are basic solar rooftop systems. That means those systems were providing electricity for 2-3 bulbs and black and white TV. Those are the basic needs of these the people who were living in the remote areas. This was funded by World Bank. And in 2010, we introduced the net metering scheme. This is basically to have a solar rooftop systems on top of the roofs of the particular customer, generate electricity. And there was no any payment mechanism, only the energy. They can generate electricity and they can use electricity. If they have a surplus, they can give it to the grid, and later they can use those electricity for their purpose. And during the period of 2010 to 2016, we were able to add 30 megawatt of systems to the net grid. And also, having considered this slow progress, government decided to introduce feed-in tariff mechanism or feed-in tariff mechanism in 2016. Under that, we were able to add approximately 304 megawatt up to now. And there are more than 27,000 customers who are doing or who generate electricity through solar rooftop systems owned by themselves. And because of this payment mechanism, we introduced a registration system for service providers to ensure the better service for these customers. I mean, customers who willing to get the solar rooftop systems. And there are approximately 334 service providers who registered under Sustainable Energy Authority of Sri Lanka. And this is basically, they are supposed to renew it annually, and considering their performance, Sustainable Energy Authority renew the registration. And guideline is being prepared for technical standards because we want to ensure the quality and also reliability of the systems, because then only people will move to solar rooftop generation systems. And also testing requirements which we publish very soon. And as I told you, there are 3 schemes that we introduced in 2016. That one is the old scheme, energy to energy cancellation, no payment involved. And net accounting. Under the net accounting system, any customer can have a solar rooftop system, and they can generate electricity, and they can consume the electricity while generating electricity, and the net generation. I mean, if there is a surplus, utility will at the levelized tariff 1982 LKR, approximately US 10 cents. And also this payment mechanism is in a sort of two-tier system. That means first 7 years they will be paid 22 rupees, and after 7 years, that means 8 years onward, utility will pay 1550 per kilowatt hour up to 20th year. There is another scheme called Net Plus scheme. Under this scheme, there is no relationship between generation and also consumption. That means there are 2 meters which will measure whatever the generation and whatever the consumption separately. And customers who generate electricity through the Net Plus scheme, they will get the levelized cost, levelized price as same as the net accounting system. Separate meters will be installed, and to measure the generation and the consumption. Consumption, of course, they are supposed to make the payment according to the existing or the prevailing tariff mechanism. And this is the progress. You can see the drastical increase in 2016. Here is the year that we introduced the payment mechanism. With the introduction of the payment mechanism, you can see that the increase of the solar rooftop systems in terms of capacity. Now we were able to achieve more than 300 systems, 300 megawatt of systems, due to this introduction of payment mechanism for solar rooftop systems. And what are the experiences and challenges that we faced? One is availability of concessional financing, because we calculated the tariff based on considering the parameters. That means capital cost, loan repayment, interest rate, rate of return. Likewise, we calculated the tariff that I explained in my previous slide. So one of the key challenge was to introduce concessional financing, because there are some low-income families, low-income households. They can't offer. I mean, they are not in a position to invest to have a solar rooftop system. So government decided to introduce concessional financing to implement solar rooftop system even for the low-income families or low-income households. And also another one is quality of the systems and installation, because if we can't implement or if the service providers cannot provide quality service or reliable equipments, then customers won't implement the program, because they will not have a sort of confidence on the solar rooftop system. So we want to ensure quality of the system. That we considered that was challenge for implementation of this program. And also awareness. That is also one of the important aspect. Awareness, because customers, they have no idea about solar rooftop system, what will be the payment mechanism, what is the guarantee that they have while implementation of this program, whether they can gain benefit out of this. Likewise, so we conducted a lot of awareness program among customers and also technicians. With the introduction of the solar rooftop program in 2016, under the Sustainable Energy Authority, the number of service providers registered is 304. So we conducted a lot of training programs for the technicians who are working with those service providers, and make aware those technicians how they can do proper job or quality job, quality service for the customers. Likewise, we conducted a lot of awareness program for the customers and technicians, sometimes even for the engineers, sometimes even for the energy managers. And also one of the challenge was program monitoring. So now with the 304 service providers, they are going all over the country, and they convince the customers, and they install the solar rooftop system. If we do not have proper program monitoring systems, we will not have sort of getting information, proper information. So we want to ensure program monitoring systems with the introduction of the program. Then we adopted certain initiatives, certain activities to ensure program monitoring of solar rooftop systems. And these are the things that we initiated to make available the concessional financing. With the introduction of solar rooftop systems, government decided to provide concessional financing, at least for the low-income families. So at the outset, we implemented the program. Government provided 8% interest rate concessional loan for the customers, but it was limited to 350,000 to have a solar rooftop systems. So basically, it was focused to provide concessional financing for low-income families, because with the LKR 350,000, they could implement, or they could install at least 2 kilowatt install this on top of that. And requested Asian Development Bank support us, and they provided US dollars 50 million to financing for the customers on 8% interest rate. And this is being implemented by Treasury as a project management entity. And also there are more than 10 participating financial institutes. They are providing loan for any customer who willing to get the loan to have a solar rooftop systems. And we established a project implementation unit to provide technical support to implement the project. These are the things that we implemented to ensure concessional financing for any customers to go for solar rooftop system. And we are planning to increase the amount of the loan and to get more financing from ADB to enhance the loan. And what are the things that we implemented for to ensure quality of the systems installation? Service providers registration system was introduced to ensures proper service or quality service for the customers, because we had an experience with the standalone systems. During early 90s, we were able to install 136,000 solar rooftop systems in remote areas, but after a couple of years, or after 5 to 6 years, those service providers were vanished. When the issues comes with the solar systems, there was no service provider. To minimize this kind of issues, we introduced the registration system, and the Sustainable Energy Authority monitor their performance and their trustworthiness to ensure proper service for the customers. And the service provider, they are supposed to install solar rooftop systems with the specifications, because we have announced this is the standard. These are the technical specifications that they have to comply when they install the solar rooftop systems. And component eligibility, because each and every component, the technical standards were announced, declared, and defined to comply by the service providers. And also we have taken steps to ensure quality installation or proper installation while getting confirmatory certificate or compliance certificate from the accredited engineer, compliance certificate issued by the accredited engineer. Without this compliance certificate, any utility, there are two utilities, CB and LECO, and how we could ensure the warranty, because some of the presenters they pointed out that the importance of warranty and insurance system to ensure the reliable or proper service for the customers. So for solar panels, we asked manufacturer warranty for modules to cover a period of 10 years. We define minimum performance. What should be the minimum performance that service provider ensure? These are basically commercial properties of the solar panels or the solar systems. Technically, there are certain other things that they have to ensure. So according to the minimum performance standard, they are supposed to ensure 90% of the rated output for first 12 years and 80% of the rated output for next 12 years. Basically, we sign agreement with the customers for 20 years, but it's still we requested them to provide another 2 more years output rated out 80% of the rated output. And also under this program, they are supposed to give 25-year performance warranty that guarantee a maximum duration will not exceed 2.5 in the first year and 0.5 to 0.7% per year thereafter. These are the things we required or service providers supposed to provide. And inverters. Inverters, of course, the warranty shall cover minimum of 10 years of manufacturer warranty. And also the warranty shall cover the defects or damages that may occur to the inverter parts. With the registration system, we try to ensure the availability of the service providers within this agreed period. And also mounting and wiring. Likewise, we requested them to provide warranty cover for a period of 5 years for the mounting structure and wiring. These are the things that we implemented to ensure the better service or better warranty for the customers for solar rooftop systems. And program monitoring. We introduced the web-based IT solution package with the SLSCA to monitor project progress, fund movements, and also capacity installed and energy served to the grid by solar PV systems financed by the project. And also additionally, periodic energy generation data is captured by CB and LECO, because now you know that when the system installed, there should be a proper mechanism to get the data, I mean energy generated through the system. Then only we can show or we can say that this much of amount of electricity generated through this solar rooftop systems. And also now our government is basically planning to achieve 70% of energy from renewables by 2030. And also we agreed upon with the UN as NDCs to bring down the or reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 4% voluntarily and another 16% conditionally. So to ensure this kind of pledge given by or agreed by the government, now we are focusing to have more and more solar systems or solar generation. Under that, solar rooftop systems program is very important because now we are planning to achieve another 800 megawatt by 2025, because already we achieved one of the target that declared at the outset of the program, that is to achieve 200 megawatt of solar rooftop systems by 2020. We already achieved that target even well before the 2020. So under that objective, now our budget speech was done 2 days back. Under that budget speech, Honorable Minister of Finance has declared to install solar rooftop systems for 100,000 households. Approximately, we are planning to get 500 megawatt by 2023. Within this period, we are going to provide solar rooftop systems for low-income families, at least 100,000, with the concessional financing to meet the upfront cost, and reduce the interest rate further to meet capital cost. If you consider about the present interest rate, it is 8%. Now we are planning to bring it down at least 4%. So the one of the key objective of the budget speech in terms of energy, renewable energy, to bring down the interest rate further. And also we are planning to, we are in the process of finalizing loan agreement with Indian Exim Bank to get US 100 million to install solar rooftop systems for government establishment, because there are a lot of government buildings, those are located in urban areas, and we are planning to provide solar rooftop systems for those government establishment to meet their requirement, to meet their electricity requirement. And also solar rooftop systems for religious places. This is also one of the important program, because in Sri Lanka, most of the religious places, they are getting electricity at a subsidized rate. And during the daytime, there is a low consumption, and nighttime, they have high consumption. So to address this issue, we are planning to provide solar rooftop systems with battery storage for the religious places, because their tariff also very low. And also we are planning to private sector investment for solar rooftop systems, while providing the facility for those private sector investors to rent out the roofs of the customers. Then we originally proposed them to provide or give 15% of the income to the particular customer for rent out of the, I mean, there's a fee of the rent out of the particular roof. Now we are working on that program, because even some of the previous speakers mentioned that we have not implemented this kind of program. Now we are planning to implement this kind of program within 2021. And that's all from my side. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share experiences on solar rooftop program in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, the last speaker of the day, I would like to request Mr. George Gabler, Principal Advisor, GIZ, to make his presentation, and the focus will be on plug and power model of rooftop being developed by GIZ and MNRE. Over to Mr. Gabler.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sharma, and thank you for the opportunity. Honorable Director General Tripathi ji, dear ISA members, dear colleagues and sector friends, I will share my screen. 1 second. Is my screen visible now?
Not yet.
Okay. One second, please. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, now it's visible.
Okay, great. So I will start with a quick introduction of GIZ. We are a German government agency providing technical support, technical assistance support to the Indian government. Our portfolio currently is at $25 million US. 3 major programs are under implementation. Most of them focus on solar rooftop. One program was very active in capacity building in this sector. Roughly 25,000 people have been trained, educated, and received courses from us. Now we are working in 11 states to implement several, we call them flagship projects. 6 of them are displayed here. Most of them focus on the increase of solar rooftop through awareness and demand aggregation programs, grid integration studies on the technical level, some technical research studies on how rooftop performs in India. But flagship project is our PV port. It was a mandate roughly 4 years ago by the MNRE, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in India, to design a system which can fulfill a couple of things. So the challenge was a plug-and-play system for residences, private residences, and the Indian utilities, also called DISCOMs, distribution licensees. To do a couple of things, most important to shift the high demand of geyser or AECs, air conditioning peaks, which are happening usually either early in the morning or in the evening hours, to take care of power outages, so-called UPS systems, to integrate storage with solar in a plug-and-play manner. Consider a racking structure which can sustain 180, 200 kilometers an hour wind speeds, sure mass production, so indigenous, made in India products, an attractive gadget, so something you can deal with on an app, a solar system which can be operated on an app, is solar generation, which can be integrated in your demand, the load of the house, and it becomes a very intelligent system. So we had a long list of things we had to fulfill, either as a standalone development or integrated into a rooftop. So we came up with a system which is in parallel to the grid. So it does not feed, if you don't want it, solar electricity into the grid. There's no approval by utilities required. DISCOMs can pre-approve the system because it will never feed to the grid. Here's an electrical schematic. The green line is the most important line. The green line indicates a sensor which has been developed under this project. This sensor measures the load directly on the fuse, on the electrical connection board, and tells this PV system whether or not load is drawn. And we also looked into this peak shaving capacity in India. India's largest DISCOM, 6 million customers roughly, gave us their data. We looked at the morning, the geyser mornings, and we looked at the evenings of the AC peaks. And we concluded that with 50,000 solar systems in the grid of Delhi and a 4 kilowatt-hour battery, we could shave all the peaks as required and reduce the demand, the peak demand, by 60 megawatts. So 60 megawatt you would have to buy as electricity, either from coal-fired power plants or install an electricity you could shave just by addressing the peaks with batteries. We looked into other states of India, to see how these evening and morning hours look like, and almost all states have similar patterns with some shifts because of one reason. In India, most of the time, except for a couple of months per year, you need air conditioning, and the air conditioning is not the problem during the day. These loads are consistent. The peaks come when everybody goes into their bedroom and turns on separate ACs, and this is where we see the loads. So we developed 3 versions of PV port, 1, 0, so the prototype version 1 and 2. I will take you on a quick journey here with a lot of pictures on how these PV ports have came about and where we are today with the last 4 or 5 slides. So first prototype was roughly, I think, the end of 17 in Frankfurt. A German consultant took on the system. You can see here the release testing of the system because we wanted to make sure that at any condition, there is no backfeeding of electricity to the grid. So our electronics we developed, we have several names for them, called now power line. This power line made sure that even if there was a grid down situation, so an outage and power outage, there is no backfeeding of electricity. You see on the bottom picture to your right, you see a table, all the electronics, including a 5 kilowatt hour battery was included. And you see the small picture and the center bottom. That is a sprinkler system which was developed for the system. So it has self-cleaning capabilities. It focuses 15 degrees to the south, and it's rather heavy. It is rather complex. It was inaugurated by Honorable Minister Arki Singh, Energy and Power at the RE Invest 2018, and also by the German ambassador. This plug idea was very well adapted. And then we handed over our first prototype to the National Institute of Solar Energy, Mr. Dr. Tripathi and the Upindra Tripathi, both in the picture here from ISA, attended this handover, and we tendered the PV port in India. We came up with our first Indian-made, let's see, standard. Some differences you can see between the German version and the Indian version here installed in Delhi on the rooftop, but it is similar. However, it was a very tedious process, very costly, but mostly the loads we needed to keep the system just standing on the rooftop under, let's see, 200 kilometers an hour wind speeds, which are common in India at several coastlines. We could not sustain that design, and we moved into a new phase because safety was jeopardized. We couldn't get the quality we needed. Challenging was to find inverters which could deal with the frequent interruptions in the Indian grids and the quality of the electricity provided to the inverters. So even the inverters failed and heavy components. So we went back to the drawing board December 2018 and 19, and we looked at our challenges again, and we looked most importantly at the loads, the wind load. So what you see here is a wind tunnel test, and we saw that as a normal system with a 15-degree slanted roof towards the south requires, you see this, the yellow number, 1,500 kg or 1.5 tons to hold it down, a lot of load to make sure the system would not flow away because it has this elevated structure. So we now tried several designs, and then we tried also an east-west design. And this east-west design you see here is our final design. The load dropped to 159 kg because the wind acts almost like in an airplane. It goes over and under the system, and it will actually push it down and not lift it up. So we had a dead load requirement on the end of 500 kg, which we then arrived or could solve with a design of benches, so seating arrangements. Here you see them. You see on the right top, the below picture, you see the mold. It's a roto-mold bench, and then the benches could hold all the electronics, but it's most important, the drawers and the electronics would slide into these benches, and then the benches would be water filled. So each bench holds 250 liters of water. In total, the entire system could hold 1 ton of water, and this water cools also the electronics. We have a temperature difference here of almost 10 degrees when the components are exposed to Indian airs, which could reach 45, 50 degrees in Celsius temperatures. Here's the footprint of the system now as it is designed, 2.6 meters in width. In depth, we have 2.2 meters. We have a height of 2.5 meters. The span of the panels is roughly 3 meters. It has, in its smallest version, 2 kilowatt. We have now a larger version, which brings it to close to 3 kilowatt. And the batteries are included in the benches, and it takes roughly 1 hour, not even more, to set it up, because it's almost like a Lego system. You just put it together. There's only one Allen wrench which you require to assemble it. In the center is this custom nozzle for cleaning. It sprays either normal water, which is dangerous because it leaves stain. You should use distilled water if you want to really get it clean, and just leave the cleaning to the water. But you just turn on the sprinkler and it cleans. All the dirt comes to the center and is then being taken away. Some expositions we had already here, the RE Expo in the south in Hyderabad. That is a picture of the first system thanks to JUVNL, a Discom utility in Gujarat. We had some exposure in Delhi, here at the rooftop of a Delhi Metro station. And even our Chancellor Merkel, visited the installation last year, November 2nd, and she was quite amazed. She called it an energy pavilion, which should be spread into the world, which is an opportunity we have today by talking about it at the ISA event. So there's a platform called homepv.com or homepv.in. This platform allows to process all kinds of orders for the system. We have identified half a dozen of vendors across India now, which qualify, which manufacture the PV ports. This portal has also some videos, and also all the systems can be seen on one single app. It's called the PV Port app. Every registration has been visible. You can select it. You can select your own system. You can select any other system and compare whatever you think is of interest. And we capture all the data of your consumption, of your generation, of the battery life. But most important, we have the warranty of the system here in our hands, because we see the generation according to what it has to be. And if the generation doesn't come the way it's supposed to, the owner gets an alert message via WhatsApp, and to clean the panels or to check for other problems this system might have. We call it Kinderleicht. That is the German word for the Indian phrase Asan Hai. It can be done by children. It is easy to assemble. And here you can see my daughter being also abused for some videos with a Bollywood producer. So we made it quite commercial. A field test series has started in Delhi and in Gujarat. Roughly 40 systems are being deployed, so we can measure the individual performance. We have 5 different versions of the PV port now, from no benches, no battery, to fully lithium-ion 5 kilowatt hours available. The project is in the hands of NICE now, the National Institute of Solar Energy, with the support and funding by GIZ, because we are undergoing this intensive field test series now for several months, probably until March of next year. Here are some prices or costs. Let's not call it prices. Let's call it the cost. The market cost, this is all in Indian rupee. I can summarize quickly where we stand. The largest system is in the 4.5 lakh region, which is roughly 4,000 euros or 4,500 US dollars. It is too expensive. What somebody would do, not related to a public project here, so funded by the German government, you would take it private. You would get some viable gap funding. You would reduce the cost, make some losses until you have the necessary volume, and then you would reduce your material cost even further. We are doing this. We have a current tender running because we assume that in India, we will see in the next years the following numbers. India has a program which is called Surya Mitras. Surya Mitras are the installers of India, graduates coming out of their 2-year IIT program. So they are, let's see, graduates and then undergo a Surya Mitra upskilling also at the National Institute of Solar Energy. The focus is here at least 43,000 Surya Mitras to be trained. We are currently finishing batches of 1,500 due to Corona. Everything is virtual except some online hands-on trainings at the NISE Institute in Delhi, outside of Delhi. Then Discoms have already committed to change their rooftop tenders to include what we call luxury PV, because the government of India under MNRE phase two subsidy scheme provides 40% subsidy for this up to 3 kilowatt system, makes it very attractive. But what we see mostly is currently a run at our 6 vendors for direct purchases. There is a middle class, there is a high-end class across India, which came to know about the system and started already buying directly. The program under iRise, we call it iRise Indian Rooftop Solar Energy Training Program, is currently preparing 1,500 Surya Mitras. 30 systems, 30 of these PV port systems have been deployed to institutes across 13 states in India. And we are providing training on these systems to these Surya Mitras. Ultimately, these young installers become their own business entrepreneurs. With that, they can buy all the components. They are standardized under NICE directly from the shelf and then send them to any consumer who wants to buy a PV port, assemble in less than 1 or 2 hours, and has a reliable business entity developed. So we're training them as we speak. COVID makes it a little bit more challenging. It is slower as we expected, but it's ongoing. Yeah. Then a few words about further cost reductions. We have also included now lead-acid batteries because India has a huge UPS market, a market which backs up failing grids for a few hours, up to maybe 4, 5, 6 hours at night. Here we have now lead-acid, which brings the system cost a little bit further down. And we expect in a tender which is running as we speak, system costs of roughly 2 lakh, including lead-acid batteries. For what reason? Because we also believe it's a wonderful off-grid system. You just don't necessarily need to plug it into any socket in a grid, in a household grid. No, you can just leave it as a standalone system in a park, as events. MNRE is asking us to address a large tender for bus stops or train stops. So people have energy, electricity to do all kinds of things, from charging laptops, batteries, or even we are thinking now with some prototypes for e-vehicles. So 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers can be charged directly at any location from that system. Some ideas how these systems could look like for urban exposure. So Prime Minister Modi, not too long ago, 6-7 months ago, has announced to solarize at least 1 city, prominent historical city in India per state. We have now taken up 4, roughly 40 systems of different designs will go into these cities. You will see them underground. So it makes solar visible, it makes solar touchable, it makes solar attractive, because this east-west design allows very low loads to keep even larger capacities up to 10 kilowatts underground. Even an office version is in design. So we are thinking of having an office completely enclosed, and then people can have their meetings and book for a couple hours free electricity. So, Mr. Sharma, that's it from my end. I hope I was not too Indian and stretched the time and stayed German and stuck with the time. So stopping to share my screen. Thank everyone for listening in the late hour. And back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Judge Gavler, for a very interesting presentation. In fact, you really made the day for many of us. Long time back in India, we had a problem with telephony because telephony was a monopoly. You need a fixed line. And when this wireless telephony came, mobile telephony came, the entire scenario changed. And now a mobile phone is there in everybody's pocket. And today in the videos conference, I speak from my mobile phone. So what you have presented, that makes a new hope. The transmission line is a monopoly. And this PV port that you talk about is portable. It can be installed in few hours. The house owner can set it up, dismantle, the cyclone comes, he keeps it back, there's a battery backup. It has many opportunities which will do a similar thing in the electricity scenario. And most of our ISA member countries are in tropical region where wind speed matters. So thanks for giving an introduction to this technology. And we look forward to hearing from you in future occasions as well. And how can we assist our members in ISA to go solar and also do demonstration projects, and in the rooftops and all, how can we make the consumers self-reliant and make energy access to everyone? With this, friends, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished with all our eminent speakers. The time is for country interventions. As I said, we have about 17 to 18 of countries who are participating with us. All may not be willing to intervene. So I'll tell Mr. P.C. Sharma, please, those who would like to make interventions, please announce the names alphabetically. And let's have quickly intervention from this country. Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, thank you. So, before the webinar, following countries have confirmed to make country interventions. The countries are Benin, Ethiopia, Guyana, Malawi, Mali, Maldives, PNG, Sudan, Togo, Somalia, Zimbabwe, and Tonga. And Sudan has 7-8 slides of presentation to share their experiences. So alphabetically, first it will be Benin.
Excellency from Benin, please.
The NFP Guyana is present. Next.
Good morning. Good morning, all. Let me first say thank you to the ISA Secretariat for organizing this very informative session. Guyana too has been doing some rooftop solar PV, and over the last 7 years, we would have installed more than 5 megawatts of solar on about 300 government buildings, and these buildings range from schools to hospitals, police stations, and so on. And of course, we're very excited about that, and we're very impressed with the savings that are accruing. The experiences that are being shared here tells us that we are all on the right track and we're headed in the right direction. And I'm very grateful for those challenges that were highlighted, because we do face some of those. Capital is always a challenge. Those programs have been financed by government subventions and government budgeting. So we have not been able to access private sector participation on this. And because we need to develop the framework to do that. And of course, many of your states have already done that using the RESCO model. So that is something that we are keenly interested in, and we will need to talk to our governments and our utilities on it. But my question is, were there any examples where you install a PV system under a RESCO model and the user then didn't want to pay you money, pay you the energy amount that they receive? Were there examples of that, and how did you solve that? It would be interesting to understand if those arose. We're dealing with people at the end of the day, and I know these are realities on the ground. So I was just curious How do you compel them? Did you have to go to court? Is there a regulatory organ that does this? Is there some other mechanism to ensure that they comply with their contractual obligations? Thank you.
Manu, will you like to take this question?
Yes, sir. I would, sir. You're absolutely right. This payment security is at the heart of what we are discussing, because if the developer is not sure about whether he would get his payments, he would build that risk into his bidding cost, and the rate might be very high. So that is why, in my view, we have to limit this RESCO project with such entities where it is certain that you would get your payment. So I would feel more comfortable if we limit to government projects and government buildings. I would not, for example, feel comfortable about private households, because even discoms face difficulty in recovering their bills from private households. The same problem is with the industries, especially smaller industries, because what happens is that no one, I mean, this is a 25-year project, so you recover your investment over 25 years. It makes sense over the segregated building or the medical college, but if it's a MSME, then no one can be sure that that MSME actually lives for 25 years. So then we have to remodel the project. For example, MSME, one way to do it is that the bidding parameter is not the cost of power for 25 years. Rather, it is that in how much time you transfer the project back to the MSME. So then it could, the bidding number could be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, because then the uncertainty comes down from 25 years to 6-7 years. But this 25-year model doesn't work for everything. So as someone rightly said, that this is not a one solution for everything. So I would say if the payment profile is strong, you are confident, then RESCO makes sense, not otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Ethiopia. Is there anyone from Ethiopia? No. Then Kiribati. Malawi. No. So NFP Mali is there. Mali.
Ok, bonjour. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Vous allez bien? Ok, moi c'est Paul Ndiera. Je suis le point focal suppléant de M. Berthet. Non, il est actuellement en déplacement, donc je vais dire quelques mots en son nom. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais remercier tout le personnel du secrétariat de l'Alliance pour cette initiative, ainsi que tous les présentateurs qui ont partagé leur expérience lors de ce webinaire. J'aimerais parler ici tout d'abord des potentialités solaires au Mali qui permettent vraiment un développement de cette ressource renouvelable. Depuis quelques années, nous avons lancé un projet de toit solaire au Mali depuis les années 2017 que nous avons appelé projet pré-énergie. Donc, il s'agit de faire des installations chez les particuliers et en accord avec leur banque. Donc, c'est ça que nous avons appelé projet pré-énergie solaire. Donc, le Mali, dans sa politique énergétique, a beaucoup d'ambition pour le développement de l'énergie solaire. Donc, actuellement, nous sommes en train d'élaborer un grand projet de toit solaire qui va avoir une capacité de 30 MW crête sur les bâtiments publics tels que la présidence, la cité ministérielle, l'Assemblée nationale et quelques centres hospitaliers. En marge de ce grand projet, nous avons l'ambition aussi d'élaborer une législation qui va permettre l'injection en basse tension de l'énergie produite par les toits solaires sur les réseaux de distribution. Sur ces deux points, nous allons solliciter bientôt l'appui de l'Alliance pour nous accompagner pour la réalisation de ces deux points. J'aimerais ici remercier l'Inde à travers l'Alliance pour les nombreux efforts qu'ils ont eu à fournir dans le passé dans le domaine des renforcements des capacités. Je sais que pour le moment, il reste encore beaucoup de choses à faire et nous comptons énormément sur l'Alliance pour nous accompagner. Et je voulais rappeler ici que le Mali a déjà eu à soumettre des projets de toit solaire dans le programme Rooftop Solar. Donc, on espère que très rapidement, on puisse voir la réalisation de ces projets-là. Enfin, j'aimerais remercier vraiment l'Alliance pour l'initiative concernant le développement de l'énergie solaire et l'Inde qui abrite le siège de l'Alliance. Et je remercie tous les participants à ce webinaire. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Next is Maldives. Yes, Maldives. Okay. Next will be PNG High Commission. Papua New Guinea High Commission. No. So next is Sudan. Sudan has a small presentation to make. Sudan. Yes, he was there. Mr. Abdul. He is left, I think. Next is Togo. Next is Tanzania.
Yes.
Please.
No, Togo, Mr. Condiment is there. Yeah.
Yes, Excellency, please.
Okay, thank you very much to give me the floor. Allow me to present my small speech in French. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Je voudrais d'abord vous transmettre toutes les amitiés des autorités togolaises pour l'effort que l'Alliance solaire fait chaque jour que Dieu nous donne pour amener, n'est-ce pas, les pays membres de l'Alliance à intégrer dans leur réalité l'énergie solaire. Alors, je voudrais, puisque nous parlons de rooftop, c'est-à-dire que l'énergie solaire sur les toits, alors je voudrais partager avec vous le projet que le gouvernement togolais a lancé depuis, ça fait déjà un certain nombre de mois, d'années, qu'on a appelé le projet CISO. Donc, c'est un projet que le gouvernement togolais a lancé juste pour faciliter, pour permettre, n'est-ce pas, aux différents foyers de pouvoir disposer, n'est-ce pas, de l'énergie solaire. Donc, le secteur de première importance pour le développement, l'énergie est aujourd'hui l'une des préoccupations majeures pour le Togo et un paramètre indispensable pour les pays en développement dans l'atteinte des objectifs de développement ODD. Elle contribue en effet à la réduction de la pauvreté par le développement économique, l'amélioration de la santé par des moyens de cuisson propres ou encore l'électrification des dispensaires, la sécurité alimentaire, l'alimentation de l'accès à l'eau, par le fonctionnement des installations et enfin la contribution à l'éducation et la protection de l'environnement. Ce lien très fort pour le développement explique aujourd'hui cette mobilisation croissante des différents acteurs et parties prenantes sur le thème de l'accès à l'énergie et de l'électrification, en particulier du milieu rural, aujourd'hui au Togo. Donc, le projet CISO, comme je l'ai dit, qui signifie en langue locale gain, enfin, ça signifie allumer en langue locale, couvre toute l'étendue du territoire togolais et vise à l'horizon 2022 un accès à l'électricité par la fourniture des kits solaires individuels à coût abordable à plus de 2 millions de citoyens, donc soit environ 300 000 foyers. Le projet prévoit dans sa composante sociale d'équiper 800 centres de santé et 3000 petites exploitations agricoles en kit solaire individuel ou d'irrigation. Un des éléments essentiels du projet est le suivi de la qualité des produits et services offerts aux populations. Aussi, tous les kits seront-ils équipés d'une technologie mobile permettant de les suivre à distance et de gérer les paiements. Ainsi, pour l'accroissement du taux d'électrification rurale, qui devrait atteindre 40%, l'initiative CISO favorisera l'adoption, ou bien favorise déjà l'adoption, puisque c'est déjà appliqué, l'adoption massive des paiements mobiles dans les zones rurales et par conséquent, l'inclusion financière des populations rurales. C'est juste pour partager avec les différents auditeurs, et enfin les participants, cet exemple du gouvernement togolais qui participe, n'est-ce pas, à la réduction de la pauvreté, parce que là, bon, vous savez, j'ai dit plus haut que ce projet, les ménages arrivent à se connecter, à s'éclairer, ça permet également aux enfants d'étudier, ça permet certains centres de santé de fonctionner, d'avoir de l'électricité. Alors, donc, je pense que ce que l'Alliance, nous pouvons suggérer au niveau de l'Alliance, c'est de faciliter, de permettre, comme l'Alliance a toujours proposé, qu'on ait au niveau de nos pays des installations plus ou moins abordables à des prix concurrentiels, à des prix, oui, à des prix concurrentiels, plus ou moins abordables pour les paysans, pour les populations. Donc, je vous remercie encore une fois de plus et je tiens aussi à féliciter tous les panélistes pour la qualité des informations qu'ils nous ont données cet après-midi et à féliciter énormément le directeur général de l'Alliance pour tous ces efforts qu'il déploie pour la vulgarisation de l'énergie solaire dans les pays membres de l'International Solar Alliance. Je vous remercie. I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Next is Tanzania. Somalia. Okay, but Zimbabwe, yes, NFP Zimbabwe is there. I request Mr. Sostin Jiku. NFP Zimbabwe. He is there. Okay, that's all, but other countries are there. That's all from my list.
Will the Excellency of any other country like to make an intervention?
Yes, Excellency. So, please unmute Excellency from Tonga.
Good evening, everybody. Desh Sahai from representing Tonga. Your Excellency, Director General, ISA, Mr. Upendra Tripathi, Senior Advisor, ISA, Mr. Misra, Advisor in charge of projects, Mr. Mahapatra, Mr. Chirwastava, distinguished speakers, and esteemed colleagues from diplomatic missions. I would really like to thank and congratulate ISA for organizing yet another very important and most informative webinar on rooftop solar projects. I think these are the projects which are really basic to the needs of all developing countries and equally important for developed countries also. In this webinar, we have been told about all the developments which have taken place in India and abroad, and I think we are getting wiser knowing these these developments. In 2018, I remember when in one of the Sun meets held at the ISA headquarters, the heads of the diplomatic missions were taken around the demonstration projects, small projects which were installed at the premises of NICE. There at one corner, we saw one gadget from GIZ, which looked very simple. And they said it is plug and use model, 2 kilowatt model. But I didn't realize that this has been perfected so much now that, in fact, we had a lot of interest in this this particular plug and use 2 kilowatt project. Now that it has been developed so much and its use is so important, and so much has gone into design into it, it was very interesting to learn. I would like to know from any of the speaker here, what is the solution to these high-rise buildings which were designed at a time when the solar was not so so much known or so much popular, say buildings constructed 13, 14 years back. Now at the top of these buildings, there are water tanks and other things, and not much place. What is the sort of solution for solarizing such multi-storied buildings? I mean, we have heard of folding this solar PV things, you know. But what hasn't anything been done on these? Can be done for these high-rise buildings?
If Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal is here, maybe he shall be able to answer that. They have experimented with many things, unless Manu has some information about it.
So I think Sanjeev has left. So he had written in the box that he had to go for another meeting. I would try to answer, sir. There is actually a limitation, yes, because till now, if you have panels on the side walls, that is still rather inefficient and would prove to be rather costly. So one way could be to set up solar panels at a remote location and supply power through wheeling to the building. However, it would depend a lot on the regulations in the state or the country. Many DISCOMs discourage it and apply something called a cross-subsidy surcharge, which makes the whole thing onerous. In some areas, some countries, some states, the cross-subsidy surcharges are not there, are very limited. Essentially, it depends upon if the country is short of power, then usually the policies are favoring wheeling in such things. If, however, it is excess in power, then it tries to discourage. So it would depend a lot on that, really. But the only way out is because the common facility is not sufficient at times to have rooftop.
And how about solar trees? You know, on one, the solar trees, you know, are these
well, I mean, again, they add to the cost. If you look at the solar tree, and if you have a similar capacity of pure panels without the tree part of it, then it adds to the cost by around 30-40%. Now, the issue is that if we are able to pad up that cost, because in my view, see, it is, I mean, though we are all respect environment and we would all appreciate the, you know, impact of climate change and all that, but you know, finally it has to be commercially viable. So unless our solution is really cheaper than the DISCOM, then I think most people are not very warm to the idea. So with the 30-40% padding of cost, I'm not really sure whether it would fit into, you know, I mean, people would prefer going for it rather than just taking part on the DISCOM.
Thank you, Mr. Shrivastava. Thank you.
Excellency, and Manu, if you permit me, I would like to chip in a little. I come from state of Haryana, and Gurgaon in Haryana has a lot of high-rise buildings. And many of these high-rise buildings are 14, 15 years, 20 years old, as Excellency said. And that is a successful example in Haryana and Gurgaon that they have successful rooftop solar models. The society, each resident society has put it up. They meet their common electrification costs, lifts, peripheral lightings, emergency lighting, many things are going on. And in some places, they feed it to the grids. There are international schools which generate power, which feed to the grid when the school holidays are there or when the summer vacations are there. So it's working. And Excellency spoke about buildings where there are a lot of water tanks, etc. Most of the buildings in Gurgaon, even if they are 15 years old, they have water tanks, etc., properly designed. And in case they are not, we must realize, why do we have so much of water tanks? We have so many water tanks because in mega cities, we don't have a 24/7 water supply system. And 24/7 water supply system is not there. One of the main reasons is that the water works, they pump the water at limited time. Plenty of space is available in water pumping station, water works, because you cannot have anything in the over the underground water storage tanks. So if we had a webinar last Thursday, so if we can have ground mounted power stations, solar power stations in the water pumping stations, 80% of their maintenance cost, the O&M cost goes to the electricity bill payment. So these water works can generate their own electricity out of space available in the water pumping stations themselves by ground mounted stations. That will reduce a lot of water tanking requirements on the high-rise rooftops, etc. So possibilities are immense. But as Manu rightly said, it's a question of demand and supply. Whether your place is having sort of electricity and at what time, and whether what is the price of electricity, whether it's being subsidized or not. Rest is technical kind of things. And if Excellency would like to visit Gurgaon, ISA can assist through the government of Haryana and arrange a visit of what is going on out here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Will any other Excellency from any other state like to, any other ISA member country like to make an intervention? In case there is none, Excellency and colleagues, we have really overshot our time by half an hour, a little less than half an hour. So I would request the senior advisor to make the concluding remarks for the benefit of all the participants. Senior advisor, sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mahapatra. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. We are really sorry that we have short the time by about half an hour, and the loss is ours because lots of member countries have left. And but the good point is that the countries have heard you all and collected all the information that they required to do. At the outset, please allow me to thank on behalf of ISA all our eminent speakers who gave a very good profile, very good picture of the rooftop situation, not only in India, but what is possible outside. Mr. Srivastava spoke about his experience in Madhya Pradesh. Then Mr. Agarwal mentioned about what is feasible under the rooftop program, that it can go from 2 kilowatts, 1 kilowatt to several megawatts. And we heard Mr. Saini, who gave a very good overview of the entire situation. Mr. Gabler spoke about a very unique experiment they've been trying to do for the last 5 years under the GIZ program with Government of India support. All these things, and then of course we had Mr. Shah, who spoke about the various revenue models. For the benefit of the member countries, you can make out that, while the technology is not an issue, of course, His Excellency Mr. Shah mentioned about particular buildings which has very limited roof space, what can be done. And Mr. Mahapatra tried to explain by giving the Haryana situation. But the problem is, if you live in a place like Dwarka, where you know that you don't get water, you can't do away with the water tanks. And the old multi-story buildings were not designed in a manner that they had a lot of open spaces. So that's a small issue that has to be handled separately. But technology is not an issue. Whether you want to set up a 1 kilowatt plant or a 2 kilowatt plant or a multi-megawatt plant, technology is not an issue, and that is eminently doable. The time period is not very, very high. And like Mr. Srivastava mentioned and Mr. Agarwal mentioned, even without subsidy, it becomes a competitive price. Even without a subsidy, it's a competitive price. But still, we have not been able to proceed any further. Of course, we heard Sri Lanka coming out with various experiments. Because if you see that the problem is the struggle with the distribution companies, whatever you call them in various countries. Mr. Srivastava mentioned that while the user was buying electricity anywhere between 8 to 10 cents, what he's actually getting is between 3 to 4 cents. So fundamentally, the 5 to 6 cent difference is a loss, is a gain to the beneficiary, but a loss to the distribution company. And so obviously, if in a distribution company, if that money is taken out because the residential area and the commercial area is the main paying customer, they will not survive. They will vanish. So they will oppose. That is why we found some very interesting models which have come up in Kerala, where the distribution companies have become partners. And you take the roof as a lease, so that he becomes a partner, and he doesn't oppose to so much. What they did in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, they tried to install 2 meters, one for buying power from the rooftops and the second meter for selling power to the distributor. So all the rooftop owners become mini generators from whom the distribution companies bought. So this is some kind of a buying piece coming into some kind of an agreement between our supplier, the rooftop owners, the technology owners, the developers, and the distribution companies who are supposed to be the main people who are supposed to promote it. So that balance has to be struck. One thing that often you can say, because all our member countries have a similar condition, because initially any country for that matter, the number of people whose actual requirement is less than 300 units per month, whose load is less than 2 kilowatts capacity, that number is very, very large. In a country like India, that number can be as high as 30% of our total consumer base. Same thing will happen to all our member countries. That number will be very, very high. The people who require less than 2 kilowatts of connection, who consume less than 300 units of power per month, they are the people who are the focus of the countries. They are the people that the distribution companies like to get rid of. So that is where you can start. That's what Sri Lanka is trying to do. Concessional funding for those people. At least that area can cover lots of people at a very limited time and without much obstruction from others. For others, of course, the model that we had for 5 kilowatt off-grid with the battery storage can become affordable. But the policies, the net metering policy will have to be very, very clearly defined to make it successful. So all these things are possible. So, and this is one program that ISA will love to participate with all our member countries and actually help prepare designs, programs for member countries. This is something which is eminently doable, and which is something which is very relevant to our member countries, because a large part of the population of the member countries are, number one, poor, and number two, they don't have access to electricity. And by the time we design for grids, by the time the grids actually come there, we can't allow them to stay in darkness. So this is one activity which can immediately fill in the gap. I'm not even talking about 25 years. If we are able to do it for 5 years, 10 years, I would have made a huge difference to the quality of life of our member country, the people who live in these member countries. So that is something that we will like to continue to discuss with you and build up some programs, some projects. We have very eminent people, we have very successful developers, we have very successful administrators who have actually proved it by doing it in Indian conditions, which are not very different from your country's conditions. So We will like this dialogue to continue in future with all of you. And we shall be very, very happy in case we are able to push this program of Rooftop to all our member countries in whatever way possible. And it's a win-win situation. If it was a question of mini grids, I will be a little hesitant because mini grids is still not become commercially viable. Let's face it. The per unit cost of generation in a mini grid is very, very high. That's not the case in rooftops. That's not the case in rooftop at all. Across the world, that is a very competitive price. So this is something that you can actually do it. So we will love to continue to engage with all our honorable member countries and pursue this program in future. Please allow me to thank all our eminent speakers and all our member countries who took part in this program. And our compliments to Prasanji, to Mr. Sarma and his team for organizing this particular program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure is ours, sir. Guidance of DG sir, you and the members' countries' encouragement. And before I will request Mr. P.C. Sarma to propose a formal vote of thanks, I must like to make a small announcement that while His Excellency from Tonga was speaking, that's the time the project group received the proposal of Tonga, which was submitted to ISA today.
That's wonderful.
So it was such a coincidence that Excellency was speaking and the project proposal was being passed on to
and
the
you
project team.
know, Prashant, I don't know whether you saw it or not, Mr. Saini had already done a compilation of all the embassies, the 50 embassies which will require about 5 megawatts of power. That is something we should really follow. We should really follow. In case you're able to bring those embassies together, Ashwini is also here, so it can become a very successful model. And Manu can always give us consultancy in that.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's
the expert committee members are
that's the low-hanging fruit, and I think charity begins at home, so all the embassies can showcase this.
If not at home, at the neighborhood at least.
Correct, sir.
Yes,
So,
Sarma, please.
Mr. Sarma, will you please propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the project group?
Thank you, sir. In the end, I would like to thank all the excellencies, dignitaries, and all the participants to spare their time to join the webinar. And my special thanks to the esteemed speakers for making the presentations and sharing their valuable experiences for the benefit of the member countries. I would like to thank His Excellency Director General ISA, Mr. Upendra Tripathi, Senior Advisor, Mr. Arun Mishra, Advisor, Mr. P.K. Mahapatra, for the guidance and the encouragement in organizing this webinar. I am also thankful to my IT team of ISA for their support and communication team of ISA for the social media outreach. And the last, my thanks to the project team of ISA for their continuous support for organizing this seminar. And I hope this rooftop solar projects can transform energy consuming buildings into energy generating buildings in future in ISA member countries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Manu. Thank you, Honorable Mr. Sahaji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I say thank you, Mr. Aziz. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Page.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Galbla.